All right. Episode 3, pre-production.
This is where shit gets real.
This is where many, many plates suddenly are thrown in the air and you have to keep them all spinning at once.
Yes, 100%. And I feel like it's the part where maybe in the first two sections, it's like mostly on me to get things going. Now all of a sudden I'm like, here you go.
Yeah,
Tell me what to do and I will do it.
totally. Totally. Yeah, it's like you really run the show, when it comes to finding your story, developing that, and then once it's like, okay, we're going to make the thing, then I become the taskmaster.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, here's what you're gonna do now. Here's what you're gonna do next. Here's what I'll be doing. Here's what you'll be doing.
Yeah. Which I feel like I've said this so many times already, but that felt like such a relief for someone to, because the writing process is so, you're so like lost in the woods at times and you're so like trying to find your way out. And it's really nice for someone to just come in and be like, make this brief by this date. Look, get your casting situation figured out by this date. And it's just like, okay, yes, I will do that. I will just
Yeah.
line them up and knock them down. It's a nice place to kind of like shift your brain into. So tell me what is step one for you?
So the first step, once I have a script and a treatment in hand, or even just a script, is the script breakdown. I will go through, read the script through multiple times and make note of every location, every character, every time of day that things are being shot, any prop notes, any set dressing notes, if there's any sort of special effects or special effects makeup, any element that then needs to be accounted for in planning and in the budget, I go through and make a thorough rundown of all of these things. And then that becomes sort of this roadmap for everything that needs to be addressed during pre-production.
How long was our pre-production? Do you remember?
Our pre-production was like 2 months, all said and
Okay.
done. Once we really started moving.
Yeah. Okay, so that I think feels like a healthy amount of time, like when we say it out loud, but I will say like we like every day it was like we were moving things forward in a significant way. We were pretty locked in for those 2 months, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And it's 2 months is feels right for a short film. I have an upcoming project that will be an even tighter turnaround. I've had feature films that pre-production was only like 3 months. So it's you work with you work within the bounds that are given to you.
In a way, having that time frame on pre-production, it was a lot. Like we were working at a pace for sure. But for me, being a first-time filmmaker, it was really helpful because I didn't have a lot of time to second guess myself or my choices. I had to really trust my gut and trust my instinct. And that was actually really valuable for me because I think it would have been really easy if I had 6 months to, ponder all of these choices. I just think that would have created a lot of overthinking potentially. And I feel like trusting your gut and making the call is part of what being a director is. And for
Mhm.
me, having that truncated timeline or, that container with which things just had to get done was very helpful.
First big bucket that needs to get rolling in pre-production is the casting process. Can you speak a little bit to what our casting process looked like?
Yeah. So we ended up using primarily Backstage for our casting, which is a kind of industry standard website where you post your project and you get people submitting to be a part of the project. So I think the very first step was creating the casting calls for that platform. And then I think we built a kind of a casting deck just for ourselves to make sure that we were aligned on exactly what we were looking for and who this character needed to be. And we kind of built those in tandem and then posted it on Backstage and then immediately received a flood of hundreds of actors. I think on Backstage, we received somewhere around 600 or 700 submissions across the board. Those were primarily for our two characters that were in their early 20s. We had less responses in terms of our folks in their late 30s, early 40s, and our child actors. Particularly our kind of 14-year-old boy. Highly recommend being a 14-year-old boy actor right now. There is opportunity for you. But yeah, and thus kind of begun just the weeding through process. I really did open every single submission. Um, Obviously, some I moved on from very quickly, but started just sorting through who I felt like could be a fit. Um, and from there, we sent the folks we really liked sides from the script, which is basically a section of the script that they would do a self tape with and send to us so that we could see and hear them kind of embodying the role and the dialogue. Um, that helped us whittle down even further. And we did callbacks over Zoom. I believe all of our callbacks were over Zoom. And then we did chemistry reads with the folks that we liked from the callbacks in a combination in person and over Zoom. We did only like a few of the final chemistry reads, I think, in person, which it was important to me. I think like I just think there's a lot that you get to know about a person when they come into a room, when they leave the room, like the kind of awkward interactions at the beginning and the end where you can't just, sign on and sign off to a Zoom call. And I think also feeling the energy between people is a lot easier in a room too. So it definitely was something that I wanted and pushed for. And I'm glad that we did. In addition to absorbing everyone perform and making sure that they feel like they are really understanding the character and embodying the dialogue naturally and things like this. I did a little bit of like directorial work with them in the callbacks and the chemistry reads, just to see how they took notes and how they responded to working with me. So it's like not only are you auditioning, just their skill set, but you're auditioning kind of their way of working and their ability to be collaborative, and their ability to take a note and make an adjustment in the moment. And I think particularly with our like really young child actor, we cast an 8-year-old for this project. That I think working with kids in person is just definitely an easier thing, and an important thing to understand their energy. We got so lucky with our two lead, our co-stars, Arcadia and Eloise. Eloise was our 8-year-old who truly blows it out of the water in this film. And I think really rose to the top kind of immediately because of just her natural embodiment of this character and this dialogue. I think Eloise and Arcadia completely just, it felt like they were the characters, I think, from the jump. So it was, we did, go through the process with a handful of other people, but they were the front runners, I think, for a long time.
Before you even started interacting, the two of them sitting down and being like, oh, you're wearing cheetah print, I'm wearing cheetah print. And like the two of them just starting to naturally build that chemistry, just totally outside of the process.
Yeah,
Like that, as you're saying, like that's such a, you're not going to get that over a Zoom call. Like
yeah,
that's something that you'll only get in person. and is so important to seeing like, is there a natural level of comfort here that is already occurring that will be paramount when once we're rolling cameras with these two people who become, over the course of this film, like really bonded.
Yeah, yeah. And with Arcadia, how is she working with a child actor, because a lot of it, there is some reliance on her, right? To be able to make Eloise
Yeah.
feel comfortable, to get a great performance, these sorts of things, once the cameras are rolling, it's up to their chemistry, right? To kind of make it all come to life. I mean, some of my favorite parts between the two of them are not scripted.
Mhm.
There's a montage scene where the two of them are just chit-chatting, and it's so endearing and wonderful to watch. But that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have that chemistry, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And also something we talked about with casting kids, particularly young kids, is meeting the parents and understanding their energy, because they're going to be on set with you. They have to be there. Um, and it's important that you are vibing with them as well, and you feel like they're invested in the project and will have kind of the right touch on set as well.
Yes, 100% to having parents involved in the conversation and communicating with them just as much from the jump. Um, Before we move on from the casting process, a couple of things that I would just call out from a more like logistical execution standpoint. Um, Backstage is such a great resource for sort of like up and coming actors, early career actors. I've cast almost a number of characters in every production I've done through Backstage. We also did use Actors Access, which I don't know that we booked anyone from Actors Access, but that's another big industry casting platform, as is Casting Networks, but it's that sort of like at the highest tier of talent, more established actors. And then another route you can go is hiring a casting director, working with a casting director to cast some or all roles. That was a piece of advice I got as we started going through this process, especially for the child actors, is find a casting director who works with kids, has a pool of child actor talent, and can help you navigate all the ins and outs of the paperwork and guidelines and requirements involved. We ultimately didn't go that route because we just found our people on our own. But I think in the future, that is something I will explore immediately, especially when it comes to like hiring out for a very specific type of role, like a child actor, or if someone needs this very special skill or what
Yeah.
have you. That's also a huge resource.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the hope, I think the more we kind of grow in our careers is that we're able to bring on people who specialize in
Mhm.
these roles.
Yeah, 100%. And there's even, in the course of this pre-production process, some other areas that we handled ourselves, that, yes, down the line we will definitely pull in other people, but we'll get there. Um, so next kind of big category in pre-production is location scout, finding
Yeah.
your locations. So we had on this film three locations. The park, which we filmed at Fort Greene Park. Beautiful, iconic Brooklyn Park. Definitely some ins and outs to filming there. It's a public park. There's sound to contend with. There are people to contend with. There's weather to contend with. But that was one that was sort of easily accessible to us. And then our other two locations were a hospital and then a coffee shop. So we sourced kind of 2 to 3 different options per location. In that first location scout where you're just going and seeing different options, I think as a producer, I'm looking for a couple of specific things. Where is it located? What is just the overall feasibility of shooting there? If it's a business that's operating during the day, like a coffee shop, what does that mean for us? Is there a day that they're closed? Does this ultimately become a night shoot? Getting kind of the sense of, whoever your location liaison, the owner of the business, what have you, whoever those people will ultimately be, meeting them and getting a sense of how easy or difficult they might be to work with, how much they'll give us, access to the space for a tech scout, how, getting our questions answered, if this is something that they have done before and just understand the ins and outs of production, or if this is new to them and they're going to require a lot of hand holding, there's going to be some anxiety over how much equipment are you bringing in? Where are these big lights going? Kind of all of that. So that's a little bit from like a very practical logistical standpoint. But I'd love to hear, in this initial location scout process as the director, what are you looking for?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is where your vision is really starting to come to life. So I think you're definitely looking for an overall look and feel that matches the tone of your script and your visual approach. But I think also, even as early as the location scout, you are starting to think about shots and your shot list a bit. A lot of our park scenes happen around a bench. Like when we were doing the location scout, we were kind of looking for our bench and does it make sense and will it make sense? Um, for how much is happening in the script around this location. So, you're there with your DP, and the two of you are likely taking photos just on your camera on your phone, and having people stand in and think about what framing makes sense and what are all the shots that we could get from this one location. Does it really cover the needs of the script, and is it really delivering on the director's vision?
We went to, like I said, like four, maybe 3 or 4 different coffee shops, and they all had such different aesthetics.
Yeah.
And like I think that was helpful to have these options that had a very different look and feel, to really help narrow down like what is what is the very specific vibe that feels right. And like it also really like kind of reinforced that one option was this great little coffee shop called Daytime Coffee in Windsor Terrace. Like after seeing these other spots, it was
Mhm.
like, this is it. It's bright,
Yeah.
sunny, it's warm. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Although we shot it in the
well, although we shot at night. Yeah.
and completely lit it for day.
Yeah.
But nice big windows to get
Yeah.
artificial lighting to come through. Um, yeah, I think honestly, so much of pre-production, I think is options, like looking through options, you know, casting, you're looking through so many options, locations, you're looking through so many options. And I think it's helping you kind of refine your vision as a director as you look at all these options. But I do think when you are looking at all these locations, we went to one that was a bit more like college grungy sort of hang coffee shop, and you stand in that space and you're like, well, what would it mean for my character to be working at a coffee shop like this? Like, does that open up something potentially interesting that I hadn't considered, or is that taking it in directions that I didn't want to go to at all? It is an really important building piece of your story, and go looking at all of those options and remaining open-minded to the options, it could open yourself up to a script development or a character development that you didn't have in mind that is actually really impactful or effective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important point to make, is that like every little decision informs the story
Yeah.
and has does just have underlying meaning to it. Like this is such a great example.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why pre-production is just so important, because these are the decisions that you're making that are going to lead to your end result. I mean, in a lot of ways, when you get to production, like these things are more or less set, you know? So a lot of the story is being shaped in this period leading up to before cameras even start rolling.
Um, so the next very important piece of the puzzle is hiring crew. And first hire to really focus on making is the DP. Can you speak a little bit to the DP, your process of choosing a DP, that working relationship, how early on they became a big part of the process, kind of lay the groundwork there for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had a DP in mind, kind of from the jump. Bobby Davidson, we worked together on a couple commercial projects. He and I knew he was really wonderful and easy to work with and collaborative. I also knew that he would be supportive of me as the first time director, which I think is really important. Like I am not a super technical director. I do certainly have a vision for a look and a feel of a film, but I'm very happy to rely on a DP to figure out how to get me there. I would say this is the look and feel that I want. And he would say, here is the equipment that I think can get us there. And I would actually have him send me work using specific cameras and lenses so that I could kind of give an opinion based on actually seeing what the end result would look like versus having to know off the top of my head what a Leica lens is going to result in, for example. But ultimately, someone who is willing to kind of work with me and guide me toward the end result that I wanted was something really important, and someone who wouldn't be frustrated with kind of my lack of knowledge or judge me in any way for kind of where I'm at in my career. And I knew he was that from working together previously, and also knew that his work was great from working together previously. So I was very excited when he agreed to join very quickly. And I think we brought him on probably like 6-ish weeks ahead of the shoot. So he was part of pre-production. I think there was probably 2 weeks where he wasn't a part of pre-production, and then he came on and was very much a part of everything going forward.
Yeah, yeah. Your DP is so important for so many reasons, and finding someone that is collaborative and fits the vision and is someone you want to spend time with, because the director DP relationship and shared role is intense and ongoing, and there's so much time and effort that goes into shot listing. Like, we'll get into that. But like to find someone that you enjoy working with is so important. Something else to say about Bobby is he's such a phenomenal commercial DP, but hadn't done a ton of narrative work yet. And so this also felt like a real opportunity for him. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he was so excited to come on board because this was also going to be a great experience for him and a great learning experience and a great opportunity to dip his toe a little bit more into the narrative world. As I've now done several narrative projects in the last couple of years, like that has been one of the big levers to pull. Is so many people, at least that I've come across, have a ton of experience in the commercial world, but are interested in making that jump to narrative and haven't yet. And so they have a ton of expertise, a ton of experience, but you have something that they want, in that you have a narrative script that you would be open to bringing them on board for.
I also had an editor in mind, also someone who I had worked with on commercial projects, Tyrone Robb, incredible working relationship, ridiculously talented editor. He was a no-brainer for me to bring on to this project. And again, so thrilled that he was excited to come on. Very similar situation to what you just described. Tons of commercial experience, part of a great edit house for his commercial work, but was really excited to dive into a narrative project. And similar to a DP, an editor is someone that you are working with for a long time, long days, in the weeds, in the trenches, figuring it out. So it's almost like the DP passes the baton to the editor, but the director is there, throughout. So those two relationships are just, in addition to the producer, obviously, are the really the most important ones for the director, just because you are spending so much time with them. And they're going to be the ones who are ultimately, delivering on your vision. But beyond that, um, I feel like you were really filling in the rest of the crew hiring process. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, it was definitely a combination of approaches. With, with Bobby, our DP, I definitely deferred to him on his camera team, and bringing those folks on board. He even recommended a gaffer who was great, and I will definitely work with again, Christopher Burke. And then the sound mixer we got through, I sourced through a friend, and then I think at this stage, the sort of hair and makeup and wardrobe, uh, I have friends that were makeup artists in past lives that are always down to help out. My friend Rosa Barney has now helped on a couple of my productions and is so talented and just like also a really lovely presence on set. And that's also something that's so important when hiring crew. Like there are many very talented people in the world. And so you really do have your pick. Like, find people who are talented, but you also enjoy working with, and who are going to bring a positive attitude and good energy to set. Because on any production, things are going to get a little hairy at moments because there's so many moving parts. There's just the nature of production is that things change on a dime, and then you have to figure out how to address it and fix it and move forward. And surrounding yourself with people who just help make that process easier or don't get in the way is super important.
Yeah.
Um, and then we also, on this particular shoot, we brought on a special effects makeup artist. That's definitely another very important hire to make sure you're getting the right person whose work is going to be up to snuff, is gonna, they're gonna be able to execute on what it is that you're looking for. So that was a specific crew hire to this job. Every project is not gonna need a special effects makeup artist, but there was a need that was pretty pivotal to this script.
I'm curious what you think the most overlooked crew position is, or just something that people should not skimp on at all.
Uh, your sound mixer. Sound is very important to a film. I think having a talented sound mixer who is just great to work with, knows their stuff, can roll with the punches, especially filming in New York, filming outdoors. You're contending with so much sound. We filming in the park, we're dealing with traffic, we're dealing with planes, we're dealing with kids that decided to play tag like 10 feet away from production. And so, bringing on a sound mixer who can navigate all of that well, miking a child, who knows the protocols for if you're laving up a child actor, their parents need to be nearby. Just all these little things that come with experience. That's a role that's definitely very important and is one that is, I think, a little thankless sometimes. And so that's a role that you're going to spend on because
Yeah.
it isn't as like, it's not like, wow, that production sound mixer really made this film what it is. It's a very behind the scenes role. It's very physical. The sound mixers almost always have their own kit that they need to prep and bring and maintain. And so it's important, but definitely is sort of an unsung
Yeah.
position.
Everyone thank your sound mixers.
Yes, thank your sound mixers. They're on their feet with their arms in the air
Yeah.
for many hours. I don't, I couldn't do that role. I think I'd have to do like a lot more.
Yeah, no, not for me.
You know, we haven't talked about the tech scout yet. We haven't really talked about shot list development. We haven't talked about getting into uh wardrobe and set design and the shoot schedule, which are all very important.
So next episode, more pre-production. Pre-production is deserving of 2 episodes because it is really where the film comes together, and all of the parts come together. So more on pre-production next time.
Yes, love it. And you know, as always, trust the process.
Trust the process. You gotta trust the process.
Gotta trust the process.